Hi, I'm just going to lower my hand here. So that was a great presentation and very dear to my heart in terms of how we think through expectations, right? And so first of all, and communication, right? So expectation and communications between researchers and patient partners, patient and family partners is so important in the context of this very bureaucratic world, which is research. And I feel at times that the articulation of the challenge, and I'm a researcher's researcher, right? Like I love research and I love researchers. And I feel that at times, as researchers, we have our hands tied in so many different ways because what many times community people don't know or patient and family partners is the expectations placed on us. And I think it's interesting to have a self-help kind of Manuel, to have that self-help piece. And yet, you know, as we're watching it, we're still knowing that whoever attacks that system to try to engage with it is going to be frustrated and it's going to take hours, and it's because it's not user friendly, right? And so I think I'd love for you to talk more about how do we improve the communication in terms of the different role of researchers and patient family partners, and that expectation of how do we manage expectations so that patients and families don't feel like we're dropping the ball for them all the time, right? And you mentioned timelines and how, you know, CIHR, I think, is around 16% success rate with project grants. New Frontiers, congratulations, are like almost impossible to get. And so how do we manage those expectations when we're asking for people to give us their time and valuable knowledge? And yet we are stuck in what is a crazy system that is really hard to articulate how bureaucratic and how challenging it is for researchers.
That's very good questions, Carolyn. It's really hard to reconcile the expectations that, you know, we have as researchers to be productive, to get grants and so on, and the time it needs to build a really, you know, really meaningful relationship with our patients, because otherwise it will become tokenism. And I think, you know, it really resonates when I hear you about talking the relationship with the Indigenous. It also takes times, but as a researcher, I feel I struggle between the times I need to build a relationship and my timelines, the external timelines of research. So the crazy system, as you mentioned, so I don't have any good answer. I think, you know, building relationship, it has to start before the grant proposal. As I mentioned with Paul, we met before, and, you know, it could start, you know, smoothly and with different activities, but not just building before the grant. But sometimes it's impossible. So I think both system has it's hard to reconcile the expectations. So I don't have good answers.
Yeah, that's a really good question, Caroline. And you know, to reiterate what Marie-Chantal has said, it really is about relationship building. And I really understand, you know, all the different priorities that researchers are have on their plate. You know, in addition to the research work, their clinical work, et cetera. It really is about relationship building. I think, and I'll give props to the CDTRP here. Might be a little bit biased, but you know, I think that's where organizations like CDTRP, like Cancel, those health charities as well, really play a part in this broader field. I think it really has to be about collaboration amongst these different entities. So I'll give you an example using myself, you know, using my personal self. So kidney transplant recipient, I'm a patient partner with other organizations. And I'm going to give a shout out here to Selena. I think you're on here, Selena, who works with Cancel as their knowledge broker. Over the last number of years, I think I've developed a really good relationship with Selena. Have very much trust and appreciation for the work that you do and how you've supported me. So my point here is, if Selena reaches out to me and says, Manuel, this is the opportunity, would you consider doing this? You know, I don't have that direct relationship and trust, which you still need to build with the researcher who's doing this work, but I have it with the organization and I have it with this staff member who works on the organization. That's something we try to accomplish here at CDTRP as well. You know, in my role as a PFD manager, building relationships is so key. So my response is yes, relationship building, but also see where you can build those relationships. How can you make those connections? We are a resource here, and we're happy to provide support, because my role is doing that, you know, day in and day out with our PFD partners. I will say a quick note. The research net is not an easy process. It is very, very complicated. Even preparing for this presentation, I had to go back and forth to make sure that I was doing it correctly. MC, you made, Marie-Chantal, you made the comment as well that it is not, it's not easy for researchers as well. So if it's not easy for researchers as well, how can we expect it to be user-friendly for patient, family, donor partners? That's why I say, again, we're a resource. We're here to support and happy to support. I debated whether I should say this on the presentation or not, so I'll say it anyways now that I'm speaking. I really like the applicant profile CV. So as I mentioned, you can do either or, at least to get started, you know, as you dip your toes into this research work and grant application work, you know, it's fine to start with the grant profile CV. You know, you tailor it to specific needs, and over time, I mean, I see the wonderful people here on the call, and the level of expertise and involvement that you've all built, you know, you're building that expertise, and maybe eventually you transition to the other ones, but start off with the applicant profile CV, and happy to help. And I see a bunch of hands here, so I will pause.
Yeah, thanks, Manuel. Shan?
Hi, everyone. I'm from Newcastle in the UK. I'm the patient public co-applicant for the research unit that Hannah Murray presented from earlier. I just wondered, in Canada, whether you've tried to use patient power and family power to change the timelines with the CIHR, because if they believe in patient and public involvement in research and then set very narrow timelines between announcing a grant and you having to have your application in, they're stopping patients and the public being involved by their own policies, even though they've probably got a policy saying that they want to involve patients and the public. I'm just wondering if you can harness your patient and public power to try and improve something.
This is a very good suggestion, maybe. And I just want to mention, I just want to add what Manuel said about the CV. You know, the applicant profile CV, it was not existent 10 years ago. So I think it evolved probably also with engaging more and more patients. So yeah, but that's very good suggestion, Sion.
So looks like Ruth, you have your hand up next.
Thank you so much. Thank you for lovely presentations and important discussion. I have a couple of points that I'd like to make, or rather questions for the speakers to reflect on. So first, the issue, so we are training with putting together the CV on ResearchNet. is there capacity to support this activity? So as part of the, let's say, network activities, just to facilitate this process, at least for the first time, such that this would not be a imposing barrier, I would say. So this is point number one. The second is, I always, I'm a believer in establishing trust and relationship, but I think learning from good experience, it's almost mentorship of the right way to do this. Marie-Chantal, you pointed out the issue of tokenism with this regard. So people, and I would say partners from their perspective where this was successful, how was the experience successful, and what are to-dos rather than do-nots in this context to ensure that the experience is positive?
Well, as I mentioned, I think to be sure that the experience is positive is to take time to make expectation clear between the both and not involving patients at the last minute to be, to review a grant. So I think, to be sure that things are positive, we have to put in place the winning condition of time, communication, relationships, and so on.
And I'm going to interrupt there, and we're going to take final comments from Paul, because if we don't stop, you're going to be short on lunch breaks. So Paul, please go ahead.
Thank you. As a partner, I don't mind if someone takes me as a token because I worked for the federal government for 25 years. I know how it works. So if there's a relationship already, if you have a bank of potential partners among the patient population that well, Paul's good at this and Tom's good at that, and he would fit. Well, by all means, I'm all for it. And if you need that to proceed to beat the deadlines, like there are two struggles here. One is political in terms of the representation of the PFDs of this world, in order to fit in the deadlines and hence to delay the deadlines. And the other one is the very short-term practical step of put my name in. That's it.
Thank you, Paul. And we're going to finish up on that note.